Misha started his career in media and then moved into SaaS. I think that's interesting because a lot of people do transition into SaaS and discover it at a different stage of their career. And before joining Salesloft, he was one of the first AEs in Europe to actually get on board with thinking about international expansion. And prior to Salesloft, he was part of Peakon. I think Peakon, I would say, has also gone through that kind of hyper-growth stage, and he seemed to be attracted to those type of growth companies. He's going to share the importance of finding the right career opportunity. I think that's really useful this time of year. I won't ask you to put your hands up, but some of you may not be on target. Some of you will be smashing target, right? And those on the video in particular, it's really important to think about getting in the company at the right stage of their growth trajectory. Because sometimes it is very much about picking right product, right time. So really interested. Round of applause for Misha. 7 minutes up.
Thanks, James. Hi. So I want to talk about something that's quite personal to me because, as James said, I've recently gone through that change of deciding to change organizations. And it was a pretty tough decision to make because Peakon is a very successful organization. It was a very good opportunity. And I'm expecting, as James said, that there's probably a lot of you in the room that are thinking about whether you're in the right position going into 2020 to really fulfill your potential and be successful. And the truth is that you can be the best salesperson in the world, but if you don't have the right opportunity, then the cards are stacked against you and you might not succeed. Now, I think a big part of it is making sure you're backing the right horse. And it's become harder than ever to choose the right horse because there's so many opportunities out there. We're lucky that talented salespeople are in incredibly high demand. We've got so much opportunity. But at the same time comes risk with that because you could very easily make the wrong decision. And the reality is that the majority of organizations are not going to be successful. Only the minority are. So how do you find that landing pad that will then accelerate your career? Well, that's what I want to talk about today. And when I went on that process of deciding to join Salesloft, there was really 3 things that I was looking for. And I'm hoping that by sharing how I evaluated that opportunity, that will help all of you when you eventually go to end up figuring out what your next opportunity is. And those 3 things are firstly, to find a strong market. Secondly, find a leader worth learning from. And then finally, find a strong fit with your values. Now, starting with finding a strong market, you can have the best product, best team in the world, but if there isn't a strong demand for what you're selling, then it's going to be pretty tough. And the way that I think about this at a top level to try and ascertain that without knowing the market is to remember the fact that whatever you're selling, you're asking people to change. And change is costly. It's something that people don't like doing. So to change, the other option of going with you and your solution has to be significantly better. And I like to think of the opportunity cost of not having the solution. Now, we've all been taught spin selling that we should try and surface implications of not doing anything, of not adopting the solution. And if you're looking at the solution, you're thinking, actually, I don't really know what the implication is of not having it, then it's probably going to be pretty tough to sell that. So don't do it. So whenever you're interviewing at these organizations, they're probably all going to say the same thing. They're going to say, we're in the hottest market ever. We've got the best team, the best product. This is going to the moon, and you're going to come with us to the moon. Like, come and join us. This is going to be great. And it's really up to you to distinguish between those who really are what they say they are and those who aren't. And I think there's 2 things that you can look for in that. The first is qualify hard on business metrics. In your interview process, ask about the business and the details of the performance of the business. And that will shine some light on the real picture before you get in there. But also go and get references. Speak to people who've used the product or service before. Speak to people who've used the competition. And that will ensure that you're joining an organization that the value promised is real, but also that you're not joining the losing side. And that's something I had to be pretty cognizant of joining Salesloft, making sure I wasn't joining the losing side. So the first point is, make sure you're joining a strong market. Now, the second one is ensuring that the leader that you're joining is a leader worth learning from. Now, I think that if you're anything like me, you still have a lot to learn. And I know I still have a huge amount to learn to progress in my career. And I also know who I learn it from will be a huge determinant of how successful I am, not in just this role, but many roles to come. So what I like to do is look for a leader that has a strong, proven playbook battle tested, where they know what specifically drives results and they know what specifically makes them successful as well. There needs to be method behind what they do. And it's not a coincidence that you often see a whole cohort of really successful salespeople leaving from one sales leader and then starting other successful sales teams in other organizations. I think a great example of that is App Dynamics. If anyone knows the guys from App Dynamics, they've all started very successful teams elsewhere. And that's because they've learned really successful playbooks from leaders who know what they're doing, and they then can replicate that at other organizations. So how do you qualify that? Well, firstly, remember that as you're being interviewed, you should also be interviewing the leader. Figure out if they really are the right leader for you. And also remember that you're actually going to have to spend time working with them. So make sure that you actually get on with them and like them. Now, similar to finding the right market, you should do your due diligence. Speak to people who work with them or work for them, and that will give you the inside info you need to ascertain if they're just selling you on the dream or they actually are the person you think they are. So that's the second thing. Make sure that you're joining a leader worth learning from. Now, the final thing, and I think this is the thing that's most often overlooked, is finding a strong fit with what you value as a person. It's quite easy to look at a job offer on paper and think, okay, that's a pretty high OT, that looks pretty attractive, and then forget the fact that you actually have to do the job and you're actually going to have to live it. And there's a few components to that. One of the obvious ones being the fact that you should find a strong cultural fit. You should like the company you're joining, and you should believe what the leader believes that you're joining. You should have alignment there. But the most important one, and the less obvious one, is, are you actually going to enjoy selling in that marketplace? Are you actually going to enjoy spending time with your prospects? Do you care about the solution that you're selling and the challenge you're solving? And this is something that in my last organization, I love the leadership. They're incredible. I loved the people I worked with. They're incredible. The culture was great. But I really didn't enjoy selling to HR. It just wasn't me. It didn't align with my values. I didn't care about the solution. I didn't care about the marketplace. And that meant it was pretty hard to be authentic when I was going to market. And it meant it was pretty hard to be passionate. And that enthusiasm when you first come in will quickly wane if you don't align on that part of it. Now, contrast that with Salesloft. Great leadership, great market, but a great culture. But I also love the market. I love spending time with salespeople like you and enjoying the conversations I'm having. I'm interested and I like the solution. I care about the challenge we're solving. And I get meaning out of helping other salespeople exceed target and helping organizations grow. Now, I'd encourage you all to think about who you are, because that's only the case because I am who I am. But think about what you personally value, what you personally care about, and how that could align to what you could potentially sell. I think we've all experienced selling something we don't believe in and having a pretty difficult time being authentic and enjoying that. And conversely, if you can find that niche where that really aligns, then that becomes natural, that becomes easy. And authenticity won't be something you think about, but it will just drive results and also enable you to keep your personal well-being as well and keep your ability to be happy in your job. And thinking about the output of that, the difference is being able to go the distance and stick it out and get the fruition of that opportunity all the way versus having to stop it early because it wasn't the right fit. So if it's not a good fit in values, qualify yourself out and you will save yourself a lot of pain. So in summary, make sure it's a strong market, make sure it's a leader worth learning from, and finally, make sure that it's a strong fit with your values.